You wake up every morning with the same weight pressing down on your chest. That familiar voice whispering you're not enough, not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough. Just not enough. And so you scroll through your phone, watching others live the life you think you deserve, feeling that sharp sting of comparison pierce through whatever confidence you had left. Each image, each success story, each perfect moment becomes another dagger in your already fragile sense of self. But what if I told you that this very pain, this crushing self-doubt that keeps you awake at night, is not your weakness, but your greatest teacher? There's a story about a man who spent decades climbing mountains. Not for glory or Instagram photos, but because something inside him demanded it. Each peak conquered, each storm weathered, each moment of terror faced alone in the darkness. None of it made sense to those watching from below. They called him reckless, obsessed, mad even. But this man understood something they didn't, something a German philosopher would later put into words that would shake the foundations of how we understand human potential. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't just philosophize about confidence. He lived through the destruction of everything that props most people up. His health betrayed him. Academia rejected him. Love eluded him. Friends abandoned him. And in that complete collapse of external validation, in that absolute darkness, he discovered something extraordinary. He called it the path to the UberMench, the overman. Not a superior being looking down on others, but a human who had learned to create their own values, their own meaning, their own unshakable foundation of self. Most of us build our confidence like a house of cards. Each compliment, each achievement, each external validation becomes another card precariously balanced on top. We feel strong when the structure stands tall. But what happens when the wind blows, when criticism comes, when failure strikes? The entire edifice collapses, and we're left scrambling to rebuild, begging the world to hand us more cards. Nietzsche saw this pattern everywhere, in the desperate need for approval, in the constant comparison, in the way we let others define our worth. He called it slave morality, not because we're literally enslaved, but because we've enslaved ourselves to the opinions of others. We've handed over the keys to our self-worth and wonder why we feel so powerless. But here's where the descent begins. Because to understand true confidence, Nietzsche says, you must first face the most terrifying truth of all, that you are alone in creating your meaning, that no external authority, no social validation, no amount of success can fill the void inside you. Only you can, and most people would rather die than face that responsibility. That's what we'll face next. Think about the last time you felt truly confident. Not the temporary high after someone complimented you or you achieved something. I mean that deep, unshakable knowing of your own worth. Can you even remember? For most of us, that feeling is so rare, it might as well be mythical. And there's a reason for that. From the moment we're born, we're taught to seek validation outside ourselves. Good grades earn praise. Bad behavior earns punishment. We learn to perform for approval like trained animals, constantly adjusting our behavior based on the reactions of others. By the time we're adults, we've perfected the art of the mask. The professional mask at work, the social mask at parties, the family mask at home. Each one carefully crafted to earn the validation we've been conditioned to crave. But Nietzsche saw through this performance. He watched as people sacrificed their authentic selves on the altar of social acceptance. He witnessed the quiet desperation of those who had everything society said should make them confident: wealth, status, beauty, yet remained hollow inside, because they had built their entire identity on shifting sand. One must still have chaos in oneself, Nietzsche wrote, to be able to give birth to a dancing star. But we fear that chaos. We run from it. We medicate it, distract ourselves from it, do anything to avoid facing the raw, unformed potential within us. Because chaos means uncertainty. It means not knowing who you are when you strip away all the external markers of identity. This is where most people stop. They glimpse the abyss of their own emptiness and immediately retreat back to the familiar prison of external validation. Better to be a slave with an identity than to be free without one. Better to know your place in the hierarchy than to create your own. Better to be somebody's version of successful than nobody at all. But Nietzsche pushes us further. He says this moment of existential terror, this complete loss of external meaning, is not the end. It's the beginning. It's the moment when real transformation becomes possible, when you can stop being who the world tells you to be and start becoming who you are. The UberMench isn't born from comfort. It's forged in the furnace of self-confrontation. Every limiting belief you've accepted about yourself, every time you've shrunk to fit someone else's expectations, every moment you've chosen the safety of conformity over the danger of authenticity, all of it must burn. And in that burning, something else emerges. Not confidence as the world understands it, that fragile construct built on achievements and accolades, but something deeper, something that can't be taken away because it was never given in the first place. It's the confidence of someone who has faced their own nothingness and chosen to create anyway, who has stared into the meaninglessness of existence and decided to forge their own meaning. This is why Nietzsche's prescription for confidence seems so brutal. He's not offering self-help platitudes or positive affirmations. He's demanding you destroy everything false about yourself, every borrowed belief, every inherited value, every socially constructed measure of worth, until all that remains is the raw, authentic self that exists beneath the performance. Most people think confidence comes from adding things, adding achievements, adding validation, adding proof of their worth. But Nietzsche knew the opposite was true. Real confidence comes from subtraction, from stripping away everything external until you find the immovable core within, the part of you that exists independent of anyone's opinion, the part that chooses its own values, creates its own meaning, walks its own path regardless of who understands or approves. This is the path of the UberMench, not a destination, but a constant becoming, a perpetual process of self-overcoming where yesterday's achievement becomes today's starting point, where every peak conquered reveals new mountains to climb, where confidence isn't something you have, but something you continuously create through the courage to be yourself in a world that demands conformity. And here's what most people miss about Nietzsche's vision. The UberMensch isn't about becoming superior to others. It's about becoming superior to your former self. It's about recognizing that the only competition that matters is with who you were yesterday. The only validation that counts is your own alignment with your chosen values. The only success worth pursuing is the full expression of your authentic potential. When you understand this, everything changes. That desperate need for external approval, it loosens its grip. The constant comparison to others, it becomes irrelevant. The fear of judgment, it transforms into fuel for growth. Because you're no longer playing by rules you didn't create. You're no longer measuring yourself against standards that were never yours. This doesn't mean becoming a narcissist or a sociopath. It means recognizing that true confidence is an inside job, that no amount of external success can compensate for internal emptiness, that the approval of millions means nothing if you've betrayed your own soul in the process. The practical reality is both simpler and more difficult than most imagine. It starts with a single question: is this my authentic choice, or am I performing for approval? Every decision, every action, every word becomes an opportunity to choose authenticity over acceptance, to choose your own values over inherited ones, to choose the discomfort of growth over the comfort of stagnation. And yes, it's terrifying to stand naked before the world without the armor of others' expectations, to speak your truth knowing it might be rejected, to pursue your path knowing it might lead nowhere the world recognizes as success. But in that terror lies freedom. In that vulnerability lies power. In that aloneness lies the only connection worth having, the connection to your authentic self. Nietzsche died alone, largely unrecognized in his lifetime. By every conventional measure, he failed. No wealth, no status, no widespread acclaim. Just a man and his thoughts, burning with an intensity that would only be understood after he was gone. But he lived by his own measure, created by his own standards, succeeded by his own definition. And perhaps that's the final lesson. That unshakable confidence isn't about feeling certain or superior or invulnerable. It's about being willing to stand alone with your choices, to bear the weight of your own freedom, to create meaning in a meaningless universe through the sheer force of your will to become. The question isn't whether you're confident enough. The question is whether you're brave enough to stop seeking confidence where it can never be found, in the eyes of others, and start creating it where it's always existed, within yourself. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up with that familiar weight on your chest, remember this: that voice telling you you're not enough, it's not your enemy. It's your invitation, your call to stop measuring yourself against borrowed standards and start creating your own. Your chance to stop being who the world needs you to be and start becoming who you are. The abyss is waiting. The question is, are you ready to jump?